Is about solving problems. And today we are going to refine the issue of identifying the problem. Okay. One, of course, is to suggest a title. Okay. And the other one is to look at the solution. Because when we are looking at a research problem, okay, we are talking about the solution as well. Okay. We cannot just state the problem without suggesting the solution. Okay, right? Right. Of course, these are just some examples. Okay, this is the real life examples that is happening that happened in 2019. Yeah? The issue of Sungai Kim Kim contamination from. It is believed that it is due to from somebody throw chemicals. Okay, it was later identified it was acrylamide compound, related compound, and it was a big issue. Okay, so the issue is to identify who has done it, okay, which company, which industry, who has dumped the chemicals. So it is a real problem faced by us. And in fact, it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again in future. So the problem with this is to identify who's the culprit, who's the company, who's the culprit that actually dumped the chemicals in the river. So how are we going to approach this? Okay, how do we identify the culprit? Is it so? How do we do the investigation? So when we think about it, this is not a research problem, but it is a research problem because that requires to define what is the problem is with our monitoring system. Okay, what is the bottleneck? Why we cannot have a very immediate action regarding this. Okay, one is identifying the culprit. The other one is identifying the chemicals itself, and what is the standard procedure that should be whenever that we have this kind of issue. Okay, so there are a lot of things in this issue, and when we start to have this kind of problem, then we are just being responsive. Okay, but it should be in the future that we have the standard operating procedure, and then we can have a mechanism to quickly identify the chemicals and quickly identify the culprit. So that is an example of a simple problem that can be zoomed in, okay, and then to create a problem statement where we can design objective to do research on this problem. Okay, the internet connection, because this happened before this, it doesn't happen. We do not know that we have this big problem on internet connection, especially in remote area. So when the pandemic happened, so a lot of teaching and learning activities has to be done via online. Then people start to notice that this is a big issue. So there are many students, especially in remote area, who's being left out. So what to do with this? No? So this is research problem, okay, but it is answering the problem in our community. Previously, we do not know that this happened. Previously, we do not know that we need a very good internet connection. Okay, but when it comes, the problem comes, then we know that this is a big issue in Malaysia. We're not talking about any other country, that we know that the internet connection issue is a big issue in Malaysia. right? So this is problem that we can do research on, yeah? Right, so the water problem, you know that recently Selangor has just replaced all the parts, yeah? Not, I don't know whether it is 100% being replaced, but before the replacement that we know we have a water problem due to, again, a certain culprit dump the chemicals in the river, okay? So whenever that it is contaminated, then we have alert that we're gonna have a water problem for 2 or 3 days, or maybe a week. So this is a problem that requires research and steps, okay? But before we can do that, we need to identify what is the bottleneck, what is actually the problem, okay? Where is the issue? The issue, is it monitoring, or is it the issue with the devices, or is it issue with the infrastructure in the water treatment system? So where is actually the bottleneck? Okay, this is of course a common problem globally. Okay, again, this is a big problem. So as I said last lecture, that we are just being responsive. Yeah? We should be proactive. Okay, so the issue is to identify, to stop the spreading of the disease. So how to do that? One is by testing, for example. So there are a lot of other, for example, groups that they are currently developing drugs for treatment, and again, more vaccine, different types of vaccine are being produced. Okay, so these are all research based. Okay, and it is not a simple innovation. It requires time, money, and a proper planning. Okay. So this is also another example of problem in Malaysia. Okay, because currently, because we know that palm oil is one of the main income, okay, for Malaysia, and the price for palm oil recently has gone up, so that's good. Okay, hopefully it just will not affect us, because the price for palm oil is already very high nowadays. Before this is around 18 ringgit per bottle, the 5-liter bottle. That was 2 years ago. And now we have around 29 ringgit per 5-liter bottles. So if you look at what are the issues in palm oil plantations, so among that I know that I involved in is the issue of Ganoderma boninense, that inhibit the production of the yield of the plant. Means that the plant has to be chopped off, removed, and because Malaysia, okay, we do have outsource of land, but then Malaysia has limited land, so we need to optimize the production within that limited land. So if we have this problem where that the trees has to be chopped down and removed whenever that we have this kind of infection, then the production will be lower than supposed to be. Okay. So okay. So the first thing, okay, we're not doing this for this week, is to develop a proposal to solve the issues. Okay, why we need a good proposal? Because when we can present the proposal, okay, to the related, or to the it can be stakeholders, it can be your superior, it can be in your case is to, of course, pass the examination. But in the actual world, if you have an innovative solution, if you have a solution, we need to present it to somebody. Okay, so in order to present it to somebody, we need to have a proper proposal write up or proper proposal presentation. Okay, because if it is just the idea is in your head, okay, but you cannot deliver properly to the person or to your superior or to the one that who's going to sponsor you, who's going to approve the idea, we cannot deliver it well, then the one that is listening to you, they're supposed to endorse the proposal, will not understand. And if they do not understand and they cannot grab the idea or think that your proposal is very important or your innovation is very important, then they will not approve it. Okay, so developing a good proposal is very important, not just for you to pass your master now, but you can use this for your future. Whenever that you need to propose your idea to someone else, to your superior or to stakeholders, for example. Okay, so these are the commons. I said these are the common formats, okay, for research proposal, okay. But then, as I said again at the beginning of the lecture, it does not has to be this way for other purposes, okay. But for the purpose of your master dissertation that some of you has enrolled, please use this, yeah. So we have title, executive summary, literature review, statement of problem or problem statement that we're going to discuss today, objective, experimental design, Gantt chart, graphical abstract, risk management. Okay, we will discuss the points throughout our lecture. Not today, but some of the points will be discussed in future lectures. Yeah. If you have any questions, just shoot. Okay, just ask. All right. Right. Have you heard of ResearchGate? Anyone has heard about ResearchGate? What is the ResearchGate means? Anyone? Yes?
Prof,
Yeah.
I think it's a problem which is not answered based on the previous studies. So I guess that's the answer for it.
All right, okay. It's okay, Kivana. So there are, some part of it, okay? If you try to relate with the problem that I have presented just now, which is real, okay, which is in Malaysia, happening in Malaysia, and some is happening around the world, I mean, globally. So there are gaps, means that problems that requires solution, and the solution probably is there, but it's not really satisfying, okay? It's not really satisfying for all people. It's not good enough, for example. Probably there is no solution at all at one time, but people have done something, but there are gaps. There are still some gaps or room for improvement, okay? Room for improvement that can be done to improve, okay? So I do not want to talk about the title first, because title is actually something you can change along the way. Okay, so don't worry too much about the title, the topic, but you can change about the title and the topic at the end. Okay, because there are a lot of things that can happen in 1 year. Okay, right? So first thing is to have, okay, identifying the problem first, which is what we're gonna discuss around 3:30. Okay, based on what you wish to talk about. Huh? So a statement of the goal of the research is why the study was undertaken. The why factor must be there. Okay? Why do you want to do this? Why do you want to solve this issue first? The importance. How important is the problem to be solved? Okay? Right? What is the problem? Why do you want to, okay, it's the same thing. What is the problem? Why do you want to solve it? How are you going to solve it? And what's wrong with the current previous solution? So when we are writing a statement of problem statement, these are the points that we should have in the written form or in the presentation form. The problem itself, of course, why do you think that it is worth to be solved? And what is your solution? How? What is your solution? And what's wrong with the current or previous solution? It's not good enough, or it's not really answering the problem, or now the problem is evolving because of the because we are actually moving forward, like internet problem just now. We never talked, I mean, it's not a big issue previously, but now because of the online teaching, it becomes a big issue. So now we have a new problem. Okay, so let's say, how do you think that we identify the problem? No, in this class, there is no right or wrong. You just throw your ideas. How do you think that we identify the problem first? What are the action that we can do? Okay, let's say the issue of, okay, let me give you the issue of palm oil plantation. Okay, let's say you are working in MPOB, you know, Malaysian Palm Oil Board. So what is the first action? Or what are among the actions that you can do to really identify the problem? Yes, yes, please, please. I know that some of you are working with, no problem. If anybody that who can answer, just answer, please. This is just a practice that you wish to work on this, the issue of Ganoderma boninense. It's a plant disease.
Review the trending, the production of the palm oil.
Okay, good, very good. Okay, you do review. Okay. I'm just giving example. There are, I mean, it's the same action. Eh? If you are facing another problem, you want to do another problem, it's almost a similar step. Okay, you read, review, reports, review. Okay, if it is a fundamental chemistry problem, then you have to read a lot of journals, a lot of books. Okay, this is about Firdaus mentioned about the product, right? The production of plantation. Okay, so we read on that. What are the things that you can do? Come on, just brainstorm. I know that you're tired. This is Saturday.
Visit the estate.
Yes, very good. Eh? Okay, if it is plantation, then we need to visit the site. Okay, okay, let me go to, okay, I'm giving you the example. Sorry. Okay, so this is because I work on this. Okay, this is something that I work on, but in a view of monitoring. Okay, it's not on treatment, but it's on monitoring. So as Firdaus said, we can read. So we study. Okay, which area is actually being affected by this Ganoderma boninense. So based on my reading, it's actually the whole Malaysia, okay? And it's not just affecting Malaysia. These are big issues even in Indonesia and even in Thailand, okay? And if we study that Indonesia does not care about this issue because they have big land, okay? They have a lot of land, so if they need to chop down, burn, then they do it, okay? But in our case, because we have limited land, so we have to do something about this, okay? We need to we need to think about how to settle this problem. Okay, is it by giving more fungicide? If the suggestion is giving more fungicide, then we have to remember that it's going to affect the environment and it might affect the product. The oil itself might be contaminated with fungicide. Okay, so we have to think about a way to minimize the usage of fungicide, but at the same time, we can save the tree. Okay, we can save the tree. So a lot of things needs to be think about, and we need to read on that. And Firdaus also said, okay, that we go to the site. So that's what I did. I went to Saimdabi nursery, talked to their, they have their own scientists, and then talk to their scientists who actually at the site, they have to do site work. You know, they have to be at the nursery. So is the Ganoderma boninense issue a real issue? So I have to talk to the one who are working on the actual plantation as well as the site. Okay, so it's not just through reading. We have to do. We have to meet the people and talk to them, call them, sit with them to understand the problem itself. Okay. All right. Okay. What more that you can do in order to really understand the problem? One, reading. The other one, doing interview with the actual staff. What more that you can do? This is ideas. Just throw your ideas. Okay.
How about sampling?
Yeah, sampling. Okay. So just I mean, you can do that because why do you want to do the sampling? Because you want to know what is actually the issue, right? And if you sample and then you do a sort of a prior analysis before you decide you want to really go into that problem, and then when you do the analysis, let's say, okay, I'm giving you another example. Okay. No, this one. Okay. So I work on this issue of mercury contamination. It's not really a contamination, but the issue is our geographical area that our oil and gas production produce a lot of mercury. So I'm really, concerned about environment, and the effect of mercury is actually real. Okay, the effect of mercury is actually real in Malaysia, but we are not that, aware of how bad the issue is. Okay, so what I did, of course, again, the reading is definitely a compulsory. Reading is compulsory. But because it is Malaysia, it's actually quite difficult to get the real data. Because it is not reported clearly the amount of mercury contamination from oil and gas industries. So you cannot get the real idea, the actual idea. If it is it a big problem? How bad it is? So one, of course, reading as hard as you can to find the resources. And I visited the site as well in Terengganu, talked to those people who provide services for mercury removal. Okay, they provide services for Petronas, they provide services for Shell, and there are other companies in Malaysia. So I visited them, talked to them, and asked and actually discussed with them what is the actual issue. Okay, how bad it is. Do you have the current solution to remove mercury? So they tell me that they have, of course, a few solutions, but it's not satisfactory. It does not able to remove, especially from oil, and they call it condensate. Okay, they managed to remove from water, water produced from the oil and gas production. They managed to treat it with carbon, okay, activate the carbon, but they were not able to remove from the oil itself and the condensate. Okay, the condensate, this is one of the products from oil and gas. So I do not know that. Okay, I have sort of a good technology to remove mercury, but I do not know that they still have problem in cleaning up mercury. But I heard about it. So when I read it and I talk to the people now, I know that there is a big issue. And your friend just now mentioned about sampling. Yeah, I did talk to them. And when I talked to them, I asked them for sample. Because it's not easy to take samples from industry just by, secretly asking them. We have to be very official, asking them that we are doing some analysis, some studies. So I asked for oil and gas samples and look at how bad the issue of mercury contamination. Then when we did the sampling and when we did analysis, yes, it is bad. It is bad. And as we know that mercury is actually very dangerous, okay, to our body. Right, so what more that we can do? Sampling prior, deciding that we want to do this problem, reading, interviewing, apa lagi? What are the things that we can do? Okay, tak ada idea lah. Okay, so that's why I put this section at the early stage, at the early development of proposal, because before we decide on title, okay, we have to know what we want to solve first. And before we want to solve that particular issue, we need to do a lot of work, reading, interviewing, maybe do a bit of sampling, just a simple analysis, because we want to justify that it is a big issue. Okay, okay, these are three, not to say it's three. So if you have any more ideas, okay, you need to tell us so that we can share. Okay, what is your experience in trying to identify a problem? Okay, so I have given you some ideas. Okay, so this is what I did. Okay, the issue of mercury. So this is based on my passion, okay, because I actually really concerned about the heavy metal contamination. So yeah, and then I have identified the problems from those who are working in oil and gas. Okay, they do not have a very rapid removal, one, and the sorbent, the activated carbon sorbent, is not regenerate, means that they have to buy it after 5 years. They have to completely replace the activated carbon. And I did ask them what is the cost for every time that they have to remove they have to buy in tons. So the cost is million, okay, to remove the mercury. And the issue is not applicable for non-ecosystem, okay, because activated carbon works well with ecosystem, but it does not really work well with non-ecosystem. And because of the nature of activated carbon, they actually did all the chemical modification on the surface of the activated carbon. So whatever chemical modification that they did on the surface of the activated carbon, it is prone to leaching problem. So it means that once they trap the mercury on the activated carbon, but along the process, it might leach out. Okay, so if that leach out, actually mercury is a big issue in oil and gas. It's not just because environment, it actually damaged their piping. Okay, because mercury has this property of it loves to do amalgam, yeah, with another metal, amalgamation. Okay, and it destroy their piping. Okay, right. So once I have the understanding of the problem, now I can know whether my solution, I have a bit of solution, whether my solution is good enough. Okay, so let's say my solution does not cover regeneration, then I have to think about how do I improve my solution so it can be regenerate. Regenerate means reproduce. Okay. Okay, right. So now this is another way of, this is another example. Okay, of course, this is, for example, related to COVID-19. We want something affordable for monitoring. Sensitive means that it's good enough. It's not going to be false negative or false positive. So it has to be the sensing system or the monitoring system or the diagnostic system must be very good. So non-invasive, okay? People do not want to withdraw blood, or people do not want to have, something stuck in your nose, in your throat, okay? And it hurts for COVID testing. So the key here has to be affordable, cheap, is sensitive. It's not going to give you false positive or false negative, and non-invasive. Okay, so now that we have saliva based RTK, so it is considered non-invasive. So we need to know what are the key that before we decide on development of the diagnostic system. Okay, so the keywords that I have here is affordable, sensitive, and non-invasive. So I do a lot of work on TB. Okay, so in order for me to justify to the grant provider, I have to give statistic data. Okay, this is statistic from WHO. Okay, about the issue of TB. And also I have statistic data from Ministry of Health on the issue of TB in Malaysia. Okay, so whenever that we are trying to define a problem, okay, we need to know the data from the previous. Okay, one is is it actually a big problem? Based on what evidence it is a big problem? Okay, so your friend just now mentioned about we need to read reports. Just now I mentioned about Ganoderma, so I read reports from NPOB. So now I read for TB problem, I read reports from WHO. I read reports from Ministry of Health, okay, so that I can justify it is a real problem that we should work on, okay? Right, next one. Okay, so since that it is a big problem, so my solution, okay, let's say because this is diagnosis system, okay, how to diagnose whether that person is TB positive or negative, then I have to look at what is the previous solution that is already there. So I know from TB that they have a microscopy technique. They have culture method, they have X-ray, they have skin test. So I have to do some comparison. Okay. So what's wrong? What's wrong with this previous technique? Okay. So this is where the gap is. So when I studied about TB, they have what we call as microscopy technique. It is called AFB technique. And in fact, it is relatively very fast, but it is low in sensitivity. It might give false negative. And of course, if it is a remote area clinics, then you cannot have a good microscope, okay? Because for sputum smear microscopy, it requires you to have a microscope. So culture method definitely is a whole technique, but of course it's very, not to say it's accurate, but it requires for TB, it requires 5 to 6 weeks because TB is the bacteria is very slow growing, so it requires 5 to 6 weeks to have the results based on culture method. Okay, chest X-ray, it is relatively fast, but it might mislead. Okay, it might mislead you to whether it is TB or it is not TB. It might be something else. So you need to have a very expert, okay, person to look at the chest X-ray. Okay? Skin test, okay, it requires 2 or 3 days, which we do not want because if that patient is positive, so when he or she did the skin test and went back home and spread the TB, so after 2 or 3 days, come back to hospital, find out, oh yeah, you're positive, but he or she has spread the TB at home or in the workplace. So we want a very fast one so that we can isolate the patient. Okay. So after looking at all the previous solution, then we propose a much better idea. Okay. So definitely it has to be affordable, sensitive, because my idea was that affordable, sensitive, and non-invasive. Okay. So from there we derive this. Okay. So this is just an example of what we have come up with. So, okay, I'm not going to show you, but nowadays, that in our line of work, we have to show evidence, especially if like I want to ask money from Ministry of Science, Technology and Innovation, mostly. I have to show evidence that I have proof of concept, I have very good fundamental study, and at least I have a prototype. Okay, they are very stringent nowadays. Okay, if I have that, then there is a possibility that I get the money. Now that would be steps, okay, in identifying problem. Okay, so what are the things that you want to share on the problem identifying? Okay, I believe that you have a lot of experience. Okay, it's okay. If you do not want to share now, at 3:30, we're gonna have a 5 minutes break. Okay, so 3:35, I would like to hear from all of you. It's just a practice. Yeah? It's not really a problem that you're gonna work for your master dissertation. It's just for this particular topic practice. Is it okay?
Okay.
Okay, so anything that you do not understand about problem statement? Okay, my question, what are the contents that you need to write in problem statement? Okay, what would be the first paragraph? Ramai ni, it's not just Firdaus kan? Okay, so what would be the first paragraph in your problem statement?
The problem?
Yes, the problem. So how do you write it?
Stating the possibility of problem that arise during
Yes.
the experiment or the test.
Of course, there is an introduction. Okay, you should have an introduction to the problem. Okay, so it's not like point form. Okay, when we write a proposal, it's not advisable to write it in point form. Okay, so let's say you want to introduce the issue just now is on TB, let's say. So you talk about the TB problem, the whole wide world. You give some data just now, like statistical data. Okay, so it is a flow. It is a storytelling flow. I usually talk to the students that it has to be a storyline. Okay, when you write problem statement or even proposal, the whole proposal itself, it is like a storytelling. So the story starts with an introduction, a bit of introduction. Okay, the problem is, let's say, is on how bad the TB, the worldwide, and you have data on the statistical data on the issue worldwide. And then you start telling about the techniques currently being used to diagnose. So currently there are a few solutions to solve this issue. But, okay, now you start to telling a story that there are some problems. There are problems related to the current solution or previous solution. There are still problems, okay? And now you move to your solution. So based on the gap just now, based on the room for improvement just now, you are proposing your idea, okay? And then why do you propose your idea has to be also in the problem statement, okay? So just imagine that you're telling someone, you sit down having coffee with someone, and you talk that I heard that there is a problem in our plant, okay? Okay, and you mentioned the problem, and then why do you say that it is a problem? Because I heard these people say, and then this one say, and based on this evidence, the production now is getting lower, so you know that there is a problem. And then your friend said, do you have any, what have they done before to solve this problem? And then you tell your friends, okay, they have done this, A, B, C, D, and C, but it seems that it doesn't work. Okay, so and then your friend said another, your friend asked another question. So what do you think? What you should do? So you tell your solution and the why factor. Why do you think that it will work? So that should be in the statement of problem. Okay, starting from the statistical data, maybe it can be a news report. Okay, and then the gap, your solution, and why do you think that it works? Okay. So again, as we discussed just now, before you can write that, you need to do a literature review. Okay. So it does not have to be a very comprehensive literature review at the beginning, but enough for you to understand the problem in detail. Okay, right? And the second part, you can do interview, you can do survey. That's why I said in your master dissertation, you can do survey. Survey is actually can be done to actually identify or to understand the actual problem. Okay, so you can do survey to really understand how bad the issue is, and then from there you derive the solution. Or you might have an idea to derive the solution, but then it's not good enough, because once you have done the interview or the survey, now that you understand what is the actual situation, now you understand that the solution that you have previously does not meet the actual problem. Okay, so that's why it's not an easy work. Okay, identifying problem, okay, writing a problem statement is not an easy work, but it is the first thing to do before we can derive or we can develop a full proposal. I hope that I have, stressed enough how important the problem, okay, statement for you. Yeah. So I'm not really saying that this is required for you, really required for you for your master dissertation, because you are going to solve a small part only. So it's not going to be like full master by research or PhD by research. You are just solving a small part. But for the purpose of this study, this subject is to guide you. Let's say one day you wish to do a full-scale research or a full-scale project at your workplace, then you can use these tools. Huh? These are just tools. Huh? Okay, so I think it's getting very warm here. I need to cool down a bit. So probably you can have, you think about 5 minutes or 10 minutes to talk about your suggestion to solve problems. And then I can comment on that. What are the things that you can do? Yeah, okay, boleh? Right? Can we have a break?
Okay, Prof.
Yes, Prof.
Right. Okay.